Hi, everyone. We've only got a couple weeks left of school, and I'm trying for these last couple weeks to look at some interesting topics. And today's topic is going to be the assassinations of the 1960s. And we're kind of putting the puzzle pieces together because we've been talking a lot about civil rights. We've been talking a lot about the Vietnam War. Um, and you got some figures here that played prominent roles in these events, in the events of the 1960s. And tragically, all four of these men that are up on the screen here, all four of these men were assassinated in the 1960s: JFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert Kennedy. So a lot of tragedy in the 60s. And I want to talk about some of these events today and really their impact on America. So let's start off with JFK's assassination. And a lot of you know this story. And this is probably the most famous of these four assassinations. JFK being president of the United States, we talked about his role in the Cuban Missile Crisis, in civil rights, and a number of things in the 60s. Although he wasn't president long, he was very prominent when he was in office. So he's riding in a motorcade in Dealey Plaza in Houston, Texas. And as you can see by the picture here, and as many of you have seen the video, and there's clips here of the motorcade, and a lot of stuff here from the YouTube clips you see on the slide. So please watch these. There's a lot of good information there and a lot of interesting things. Also some stuff about the conspiracy theories. But he's riding in this convertible, and he's going to be shot supposedly by the assassin Lee Harvey Oswald, who's in the book depository. And as this goes by, he shoots JFK, and JFK's shot in the head, or goes through, hits him in the head. His wife, Jackie Kennedy, is there and is holding him, and it's a horrific scene there in Dealey Plaza. And JFK is going to be pronounced dead in the hospital later. So he's killed, and Lee Harvey Oswald is captured later. He actually kills a cop as well before he's captured. And Lee Harvey Oswald is captured, and he's a former Marine, defector to the Soviet Union. There's still a lot of speculation about his motive, because what's going to happen is, as he's being transferred 2 days later, he's going to be shot and killed by Jack Ruby, who's a nightclub owner. So the assassin is killed 2 days later. Now, if you've seen any movies, any kind of thrillers, things like that, this certainly gets people thinking, like, why would the assassin be killed? Now, Jack Ruby says he wanted to make things easier for Jackie Kennedy, not have her go back to court. So there's a commission, a Warren Commission, that investigates JFK's assassination, and led by Chief Justice Earl Warren. And the commission determines that Jack Ruby acted alone, Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. A lot of people don't believe that to this day. So the impact of the assassination, I'm going to ask you to write about this later. LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, takes over. If any of you have gone to the Air Force Museum, you might have seen the plane, the Air Force One, where LBJ took the oath of office. To me, it's always eerie and haunting when you walk in that Air Force One and you stand where LBJ stood and where Jackie Kennedy stood, with blood still on her dress as LBJ took the oath of office. He takes over. You have the Great Society. You have the Vietnam War escalation that takes place under LBJ. What would have happened if Kennedy was there? So there's a lot of impacts here, okay? Fortunately, LBJ continues civil rights and what Kennedy wants to do, Civil Rights Act of 64 and all that. But get back to this. A lot of people don't believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. There are a lot of people out there that are still conspiracy theorists. So
did somebody say conspiracy theories? Now, it's obvious that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill John F. Kennedy. It was obviously the Russians. No, it was the aliens. Wait, it was the Illuminati.
okay, conspiracy theorists, I think you've been reading too many things on the internet. This is you're a little out of control. You better get out of here. I need to finish my video with historical facts, not conspiracy theories.
You don't believe us? Those are facts. Come on, let's go.
All right, we'll see you later. We need to get back to some real history here. All right, so anyway, no more conspiracy theories with this one, but you obviously know there's a lot of stuff out here. You've heard it. There's a lot of things there. So let's move on to the next tragedy, and that's the assassination of Malcolm X, which takes place on February 21st, 1965. And we learned about Malcolm X, and Malcolm X obviously was a huge figure in the civil rights movement. A a little bit of a different philosophy than Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X called for more aggressive action. Um, Malcolm X is going to be shot. He's given a speech. He's going to give a speech. He's going to be shot by 3 members of the Nation of Islam, who he used to be connected with, but he's now seen as a threat by the Nation of Islam, supposedly. And he's shot 21 times. A tragic, tragic incident. And both of these clips, I want you to watch these clips here on this because they can do a better job than I'm going to do here. They're going to explain to you, there's some eyewitnesses that explain what happened on that day. New Netflix series out recently that talks about conspiracy theories with Malcolm X. But Malcolm X being killed, obviously a tragic assassination of an important civil rights leader. Another great leader gone. Now it's more of this anti-establishment civil rights leader who called for some more aggressive actions out of the way. Now you tend to have more establishment civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King Jr. So Malcolm X's assassination is an important event during this time. Watch these clips; they really explain the take you into the scene and what happened on that day. Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, Martin Luther King Jr. Obviously, this is a huge, huge event. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the great Americans in history, leader of the civil rights movement. We talked about his impact, letter from a Birmingham jail, Selma March, passive resistance, direct action, all these things. So MLK is at a motel in Memphis, Tennessee, and he's on the second floor of the motel, and Martin Luther King Jr. Is going to be shot. While he's on the second floor, he actually leans over, and that's why the bullet actually hits him in the head. Otherwise, it would not have. And you can this clip here explains a lot of this and shows a lot of this. But he's shot by a guy named James Earl Ray, and James Earl Ray, a lot of people believe was a patsy, was someone who really didn't plan this. If you want to look for a motive with James Earl Ray, the guy was a racist motivation here for killing civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. There's strong conspiracy theories here. In fact, a court awarded the family of Martin Luther King Jr. Money, $100, in a lawsuit claiming wrongful death connected with these conspiracy theories. So a lot of people believe the government might have been connected, CIA, the Memphis police. Martin Luther King Jr. was being investigated by the FBI. So there's a lot of things here, but this was a huge moment in American history when one of the greatest civil rights leader, many would claim the greatest civil rights leader in American history, was killed in that second floor motel. And think about the impact that had. On one hand, it makes him a martyr for the civil rights movement. We still view him as a hugely important figure. But on the other hand, what else would he have done? What happens if Martin Luther King Jr. would have lived for 30 more years, right? What would he have accomplished in terms of equality in this country? So that's a huge impact. So think about that and Martin Luther King Jr. And this is a little bit eerie. I want to go to the last assassination, and it's Robert Kennedy, brother of John F. Kennedy. Now, Robert Kennedy is running for president. He is a presidential candidate on June 5th, 1968. Down here at the bottom, before I talk about this, I want to look at this down here. After MLK is assassinated on that same day, Robert Kennedy is going to give a speech. And if you get a chance here, watch this clip. It's a great speech. He gives it to, he goes to a rather dominant African-American area in Indianapolis. And he gives a speech, and he is going to inform the crowd that Martin Luther King Jr. is killed. They don't know it even happened. So he tells them about this, and he gives a speech really honoring Martin Luther King Jr., but also talking about the impact here. And many people say this kept riots from taking place, because there were riots across the country after MLK was killed, but there were also there weren't really riots in Indianapolis, and many people credit Robert Kennedy for doing this. But this speech is great, and if you can read this, and it's eerie knowing that he's going to be assassinated not long after. So Robert Kennedy is going to give a speech in Los Angeles at Ambassador Hotel. And right after his speech, and you can see the image, you're going to see in this video clip, in one of these clips, you're going to see the image of him giving the speech. Then right after he gets off, he's taken out through the kitchen, and there's an assassin that's waiting on him. And Sirhan is the assassin. He's a Palestinian. And the theory is he's upset about Robert Kennedy's support for Israel. If you understand Israel and Palestine, a conflict that still goes on today, but that would be the motivation. And this image of him being on stage and shortly after on the ground bloody is a really haunting image in American history. And Robert Kennedy would have been president of the United States, most people say. He would have won. So although he wasn't president, he's killed while he's campaigning. And one of the impacts of this would be that, one, we lose out on Robert Kennedy becoming president, but also what could he have done good for the country? But also, Secret Service starts to protect the presidential candidates after this. So when Joe Biden is running against Donald Trump, Joe Biden, obviously he's former vice president, so it's a little bit different here, but the candidates running for president will get Secret Service protection. I had the Secret Service agents in my classroom earlier this year, and they may be ones that are on protective detail. So it's really interesting. Robert Kennedy, the final of the tragic assassinations, all four of these are really, really important in American history. Here's what I want you to do for your assignment, okay? I'm going to obviously put this in directions, but what I want you to do is I want you, for each one of the assassinations, I want you to explain what was the motivation behind the assassination? What was by why each national figure was assassinated? What was the motivation of the assassin? What was the speculation? Why did this happen? And obviously, they aren't good reasons. But what was behind the scenes? If you believe in a conspiracy theory, go ahead, explain that here if you want. For number one, okay. For the second one, I want it to be, how did the impact when these figures are killed? What impacted did their death have on America? How did it impact things? Think about this, right? Think about what you know about the civil rights movement, about the Cold War. You could speculate a little bit. I want to see that you're thinking a little bit here. That's all. Okay. We're going to be looking at some interesting things. We're going to look at Watergate next. So I want you to look at some why you think these happen. Use your brains a little bit. Think about this. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it made you think a little bit. And make sure you watch the clips on this PowerPoint. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later. Take care.